hope you've been enjoying our Smart Landlord 2019 campaign here on Property Tribes, kicking off the new year with a load of great intel and content about how to be a smarter landlord in 2019. And I'm delighted to be joined by Ed Mead of Vuber. And Ed, it's just very serendipitous for this topic that we're actually in a recording studio, because we've just recorded a podcast and it's all about education. Do you think that the smarter landlord in 2019 is going to have to place more emphasis on that?
Well, I think if people want to survive as landlords, and bearing in mind that the vast majority of landlords these days they only own one or two properties and probably don't understand the process very well, they're going to have to be smarter or they aren't going to survive. So I don't think it's any longer a question of getting better yields or buying better properties. It is becoming a question of survival for a lot of them.
And I think a lot of landlords in 2019, they are going to be looking to self-management, perhaps as a hedge against Section 24, and they're going to have to think about the support network around them and probably look to outsourcing more activities, and that's where your product Vuber comes in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm never one for advocating people not using the advice of a professional estate agent or a professional lettings agent if they can. But part of the Smart Landlord initiative that you're doing this year is very much around how people can increase that yield and save some of their costs. So obviously the reason I set up Vuber, crikey, it's 2.5 years ago now, whatever it was almost, was precisely to benefit those sort of people who wanted to do things themselves. And to be able to access thousands of people all over the UK at the click of a button to go and do a simple, low complex task, take a picture of a problem in a property, to fix a key safe so that contractors can get in, to go and meet a contractor, to have eyes on a tenant. There are so many things that landlords can do that they currently have to pay a regular fee for. And I think an outsourced service like Vuber gives them the opportunity to book it at the click of a button just when they need it, rather than paying for it month by month.
So what are your feelings about going ahead in 2019? Do you think there's still opportunity for landlord? Because clearly I think landlords are going to become more scarce, and where there's scarcity there's always value.
Well, I think they're becoming scarcer but more professional.
Yeah.
And obviously with what we're doing today, smarter, hopefully. The big test, I think, will come in a couple of months' time after Brexit to see whether people really do decide that they want to carry on investing. I mean, I think that if things go well, I think there's every reason to suspect there'll be a bit of a bounce in the market and a certain amount of confidence returning. But the UK is a great place. It's a safe island, economically, politically stable, on the Greenwich Meridian, trade with Japan, trade with America, hasn't lost any of that.
Quite.
So for most people who want to invest in property, it's still a good bet.
And Ed, you've been in property for I don't know how many years now, so you have seen so many cycles and you've always kept the faith with property.
Yeah, and I think historically that's the case. I mean, I think a lot of us have been very lucky, and I think at the moment the general view is that property in 2019 is unlikely to be rocketing upwards in value. There may be a little bounce back in London depending on what the exchange rate does post-March. But I think in general terms, again, I've got to remind people actually that property outside London and the South East is still quite cheap even in nominal terms. It's not much higher than it was 10 years ago. So from that perspective, it still makes sense to invest, and wages do at the moment seem to be on the way up. So hopefully it's still a good investment.
So as we close this out, Ed, I would like to propose that the smarter landlord in 2019 is probably going to be a landlord that takes an even longer term view than perhaps landlords have done in the last 10 years. I think we're perhaps looking at an investment horizon of 20 to 25 years. Do you think smart landlords are going to have very long-term thinking?
The smartest landlords were the ones that have been most successful, were the ones that I started out with back in the late 70s and early 80s, and they all took very long-term views. I think rapid 10% per annum value increases in the noughties spoiled a lot of landlords, a lot of potential property investors. And the ones that are coming in now, not that they've been burnt, but they've been scalded into realising that they have to take a much longer term view. So I think you're absolutely right.